Welcome back to another episode of Rap Drinks. I'm Bert, your host, here with Mike. Jessica's back as a co-host, and we have Kathy Kim as our guest today. Kathy is a puppeteer whose work can be seen on the iconic kids show Sesame Street, where she performs as Chi-Young.
Chi-Young.
Okay, yep. I fucked that up. She's the first Asian American Muppet or puppet? Mm-hmm. Muppet. Mm-hmm. I never know when the cross happens on Sesame Street. Kathy's work can also be seen in Awkwafina's Nora from Queens, Helpsters on Apple TV, and Phantasmas on Max. I hear you're also a accomplished opera singer. Even after Cheers, though. Oh, did we cheer? I did this like 6 times.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers, guys.
The power of
everybody.
Yeah, you can tell why I drink. Yeah. So how does this opera career fit into this?
Oh
this
my
whole,
gosh. So you're actually asking me this.
Oh yeah.
There is another Kathleen Kim who is a very accomplished opera singer. And so when you Google my name, like we both come up, and in some cases, like I think on Wikipedia, so I went to Syosset High School, shout out in Long Island, and like on the bottom of their Wikipedia page is like a list of notable alumni, and I'm on there, but you click on the hyperlink and it's the opera singer. And I've been asked like on other interviews and things like, and so how did you get into opera? I'm like, what? Oh, God damn it. You know? And I feel like one day we will meet.
Yeah.
And it will create a tear in the space-time continuum or something.
Nice.
Like we won't be able to touch.
This interview will put you above her on Google searches.
I hope,
so you'll win.
I guarantee opera Kathleen Kim knows who I am because like I'm sure the same thing has happened to you.
Somebody asked her,
yeah, she's like,
how did you do puppeting?
Yeah, exactly. Like she's like all like diva'd out and ready to like sing an aria, and they're like, "How did you get into puppets? That's so crazy! That wow, that's so many hats." But yeah, the one day I'll meet opera singer Kathleen Kim.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, not me. I only sing in karaoke. That's
okay.
And sometimes on Sesame Street.
Yeah.
But
nice.
mostly karaoke.
Okay. So how did you get into puppeteering? I guess is the real question.
You know, I feel like with puppeteers on TV, there's like 2 ways that you get in. You come out of the womb going like, I'm going to be a puppeteer with the Muppets, mama. And then you like make puppets. You go to school.
Your mom
and
as a puppet
what's
briefly
that?
when you
Yeah,
exit
you
the
like
womb.
come out, you wear your mom as a puppet.
Real briefly. And then that just sticks with you.
For just a moment in time. Or you go, whoa, how did I end up here? It's like half and half. I feel like most women are the, whoa, how did I end up here? I always loved the Muppets. Sesame Street was like my jam. I watched it way longer than any kid should, which is like a lot of the people who work at Sesame Street because I love the puppets. I love the world. I love the creativity and the way that they didn't talk down to kids and opened up this whole world of possibility and diversity too, even back then. But I love Jim Henson, but it didn't seem like a job that actual people got to do. Like not for nothing, but in the 80s, it was
just like you're reaching. It's like
it's not an attainable dream. And like even watching the behind the scenes stuff in the 80s, like you know stuff that like really just grabbed my imagination. I'm like that looks like the funnest job. It was. You know, the main characters were played by 6 or 7 white men. And it's like, I'm already like an Asian little girl in the 80s and I don't see me on TV. I'm already in a sort of headspace of like, there's so many places I don't belong. And, you know, you have these Korean immigrant parents who are like, you know, want you to focus on something that's like a path that's been well trodden. And so it wasn't, it was like a nerdy thing I did, you know, for myself sometimes, but I didn't think of it as a career, nor did I think of performance as like an option for me. So I went into production actually, because that was like another way of, you know, storytelling. Fast forward to meeting my husband. He was doing a lot of UCB improv, and he found a class that was called Puppetry for Improv, comedy improv.
Okay.
Talk about niche.
Yeah.
Very niche.
So we took this class like for fun, and the teacher
together.
Yeah, but together, yeah. You know, he's like, you like Muppety stuff, and you know, we could do this together. I'd never done improv before, but we're like, yeah, sure. And so the teacher, his name is David Fino. He still runs Brooklyn Puppet Conspiracy. He kind of took a
Conspiracy.
That's what his company's called. They build and do puppets. But anyway,
Conspiracy.
I think he did it to sound cool, but it's just puppets. He, you know, like saw something in me, I guess, and took me on gigs as his assist or his like right hand. And, you know, I still was working mostly in post production or both like, field and post for reality TV mostly. But every once in a blue moon, I would get to, be on like a puppet shoot. I'm like, oh my God, it's like my childhood dream. I get to do every once in a while. Who gets to do that, right? 2014, Sesame Workshop offered a audition-only puppet workshop. And all those guys from David's class, they're like, we're all going to submit auditions. Are you? And I'm like, no, that just break my heart if I can't get in, And the night of the deadline, I'm like, oh, no, if any one of them gets in, I'm going to regret not doing it because I know.
Right, because you're right there. Yeah.
But also, and so I had some LED lights at home. The batteries were in charge, and it's like 10 o'clock, and I'm like, I gotta just put something together. I got in, and so that's how I ended up at Sesame. And they would call in some of these new people from the workshops to do right handing, to be in the background, to kind of observe. And then 2017,
right handing.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that later.
Okay.
I, along with 3 other puppeteers, there were 4 of us chosen to be part of the first mentorship program to grow the next generation of Muppeteers on Sesame Street. And so it kind of started with that. And in the last few years, with some opportunities and the support of my awesome husband, Brian, he's like, I think you can leave production and try to make an honest go at performance and puppetry and VO. And so now I'm here with you fine folk.
Don't get ahead of yourself. So I guess
started at the bottom.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? This is great. Don't let this fool you. This production is legit. What a cool podcast.
So you definitely threw some terms out that let's just break down what puppeting is probably way bigger than people actually think it is. Can you talk about what are the different roles within puppeteering?
Well, it's funny because Jessica and I were talking about this. There are certain terms that you don't realize are puppetry specific until you meet people who aren't. I'm like, oh, you don't know what a right hand is, I don't know. How would you got to be more specific. I'll tell you what a right hand is.
Well, okay, yeah, I guess it. So, I mean, there's people that build them. There's people that maintain them. There's people you do the voice acting. I'm assuming the right hand, I'm going to guess, is the extra person. When you're operating a puppet, you're probably doing the mouth and one of the hands. So your right hand is an extra person.
Yes.
Is it always the right hand? Is it?
Well, unless you're assisting a left-handed
person,
like Jen. Yeah.
So it's just
then
you're left-handed.
Well, yeah. No, I don't know. It's such a broad term. Yeah. So right-handing, not always. My main character, Chi-young, she is what you call a rodded puppet. So she's got rods coming out of her hands. And sometimes I can control both. But if you want them to do something,
right.
if there's something that they want to do more specifically, that they want to focus on the left hand, you can just kind of be there to support the right hand so they don't have to think about it, or if they have to do something kind of complicated with props. Some characters who are live-handed puppets Ernie, Swedish Chef, Cookie Monster, they have gloved hands so they can nom nom, and they always require a right hand or an assist. Otherwise that right hand just falls down dead limp. So the main character will do the mouth and the voice and the left hand. And for Cookie Monster, it might be just snugging up next to the performer, getting into the right hand and watching a monitor, make sure that it's all cohesive and that they look like one, entity. And that, the worst thing that you can do is do too much as a right hand. It's oh, that right hand is out for its own because it's just just pointed and doing too much. And that's I think every beginner thinks well, I can't just sit here and do nothing. I got it. This is my chance. But you're just there
to extra in the background is trying to get featured.
Yes, exactly. It's nothing's worse. You're just there to kind of keep it alive and do Big Bird. Big Bird, it's clearly just one person inside the costume of Big Bird. Is Matt's hand is up in his mouth, left hand, but there's a monofil that goes from his left hand up to his chin down to his right wing, and so it doesn't. Yeah, and so there's just it just does the sympathetic movement, and so sometimes it's just as simple as that, just to keep it alive, know, and that's the goal of puppetry, to make you believe that this is an actual living character.
Hey guys, we appreciate you watching Rap Drinks, but we need your support. You can directly support Rap Drinks by buying us a beer. With your donation, we'll give you a shout out on an episode and thank you for your contribution. Your beer purchase helps support the show without relying on a ton of advertising. So use the link below to keep us hydrated. Thanks.
Fascinating
What?
to look at because it's just like he's there and the right hand.
Oh yeah, we
is
should say
just-
that Jessica is one of
So how
one
do
of
you
our,
guys know each other?
Oh, okay. Jessica. Jessica is one of our amazing camera ops for one of the studios that we shoot Sesame Street on. But also we know each other from another puppet show, Mo Willems of, like Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus and Piggy and Elephant. If you're a parent, you know who Mo Willems is. He's like a prolific children's writer, and he has like a new series with Pigeon as a puppet. And so we've shot a bunch of YouTube shorts and stuff, and Jessica's on that as well. So she is like well versed in this very niche world of puppetry. And once like we get crew who know how it works and you're good and you're cool with us, like we don't let you go because you're very valuable. It's such a specific thing you have to know how to do, and Jessica's wonderful. And we talked about this briefly, but it's why, like, even though I feel kind of like out of place, like everybody here is like, you guys really know how to set up a set, and I'm like, I will just sit here and sure, yeah, I don't know how any of this works. But in terms of like bringing on a performer to your awesome podcast, like it makes sense for puppetry because it feels like we often feel like we're all part of one cohesive crew. It's not like talent and like camera, like we're all part of a team together, and it's like very symbiotic because we're constantly talking to each other. Like if you come up or you'll be like, if you can just move your body this way, I can get you out. And it's very collaborative in a way that I've only learned because like I haven't really been a talent in like many other things besides doing a puppet or a costume, that I guess is like unusual to have that kind of a relationship on other sets. Like you wouldn't be an actor and be like, well, if you could just move the camera, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't do that. You know?
Sometimes they say that.
No, but it is a very unique relationship that you have to have with talent when you're operating camera and puppet shows.
We don't feel like, because even, like our talent PAs are always so like, they have the easiest job because they're like, do you guys need anything? We're like, no, we're good. Thank you so much for even asking. Like, we don't think of ourselves as like
very
talent.
self-sufficient.
Yeah, and because we do have to do everything. And I think like we're in a unique position because the way that like Jim Henson's TV style, film style puppetry works is uniquely, we are looking at a monitor, and it ensures that we're getting out of the shot and that our puppet looks the best that it can. Like if we're supposed to be in center and frame, you don't have to do anything. Like we instinctually know we're looking at it, Yeah. And so we're in this very unique situation of being the only kind of performance where we are looking at exactly what, we look like in the moment. And so because of that, like we're sort of in control of the frame as much as like camera is, which is very unique, And so we try not, obviously we don't step on each other's toes. There are things that you guys know and do that we don't know how to do that stuff and vice versa, but it's very collaborative. And so, yeah, we love our camera team. They feel like part of our puppet team, honestly. And like when I was on Helpsters, the show Helpsters on Apple TV Plus, it was like a big puppet show. Showrunner was like Tim McKeown, who's like this legend. Oh, he's like from Pigeon. And he wrote for like Adventure Time and Gravity Falls and Foster's Home for Imaginary. Like he's great. And so they brought on all these like these camera ops who are DPs who were like on all the shows during like the aughts heyday. And it was like there was definitely like a deeper friendship than like, hey, I remember you from that. It's like a partnership. And it was really, it's really cool. One of my favorite like memories on Helpsters actually was like, so Mark Sparrow, have you ever worked with him? He's like a camera op, and he does Steadicam. He's like a younger guy. And so he was new to puppets. And there was like a moment like months into production where like we coordinated something like before the shot. Once we saw what it was, I'm like, okay, because he's like steady camming and I'm like behind this puppet. And as soon as he comes here, you're going to see me. And so we did this thing where it's like, okay, when you come here, if you could tilt up it, I'll just make sure to bend down. And we did it. And it seemed like an impossible shot. And we kind of high-fived and it felt like it felt really good. We're like, oh, we're like the old guard. Yeah. Like we're doing it. So that's what the partnership between like puppets and camera is like, Yeah.
So you really have to work together. It's almost like the monitor is like the equivalent of like making sure an actor hits their marks, because if they're not in their light, they're not in their fucking light.
Yeah, and it's not because we don't know where our mark is. It's because we fucked up with like our puppets.
You can absolutely swear.
Yeah, there's no rules here. I will say when I worked with puppets for the first times, I underestimated how many monitors needed to be. A lot of monitors.
Everybody does. Everybody does. Because nobody sees like the mess of human body parts that are underneath that frame. And so,
Whose job is it to bring the deodorant?
Okay. That is like,
I can imagine because if you're hugging each other just to do one arm.
No, it's like a puppet etiquette thing. Almost everybody carries like Altoids or one of those Listerine sprays with them because and you have to make sure that you are showered and clean and deodorized.
You're just like this all day.
Yeah, and we're in each other's armpits.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everybody has to smell good. You have to have spatial awareness for sure. But the monitors, like whichever AC is in charge of monitors is our best friend.
So you don't bring your own. That's not something like
no.
you don't have a kit or anything.
Oh no, we don't touch any of that stuff. At Kaufman, Barbara Bianco, I think is her last name. She is like, she's been our monitors person. She's like, on the camera team. She's like an AC, but she's been at Sesame for decades, and like she is our best friend, and she is a ninja, and she has gotten to the point where, based on a configuration, she knows that like I'm sitting backwards to get into Cookie Monster's right hand, but I'm up against a wall or whatever, and she's already set one up for me because she knows like I cannot see without the monitors. So like it gets to the point like our AC is like Cindy is like our best friend. We're like Cindy, because it's such a jumble of like body parts. Like we're not all just like comfortable. And like we can all share like one screen like this, like we're all like this, and sometimes we have to like get our head out of the shot. So if we can have a monitor right here or right there, and we'll make it work. Like it's like, no, I can see through your legs. I'm fine. I got this one, But for as many puppeteers are on the floor is how many monitors.
I mean, you just posted some BTS of you operating like a puppet that's on somebody else's lap, and you were in a pretty compromised position there.
Yeah, that's just what it's all about, man. It was a commercial campaign for Nuuly, which is like a Rent the Runway, like a clothing rental company, and they come in these like the clothes that you rent and send back are in these like big bags. They're like almost like soft cases. And so they had the shot where the two actresses had their Nuuly bags on their lap on the subway, on this like subway set. And so we couldn't drill anything because it wasn't our set. I had to come in and have the mouth of this bag move. And so we're like, I don't know how we're going to do this. But she kind of just like sat like kind of more on the edge of the seat. And then we had two identical skirts. And then she pulled down the inside skirt. Like we had to become real close real fast. And so I was down underneath, like between the two skirts, and came up on the puppet. And so again, like it's like so symbiotic because it's like the wardrobe on that set became my best friend too, because like I couldn't get in or out without her like helping me through. And then I'd have to check in with the actress, be like, I'm coming in.
Hey, I'm just gonna sit under here and put my hand between your legs.
Yeah. We had to be real good friends real fast. But it's a lot of spatial awareness and like respect and trust. Yeah.
And then they got to get a monitor in there for you too, somewhere.
In the skirt. No, it was right there.
Right in her crutch.
But a lot of uncomfortable positions. People are like, oh, your right arm must be so buff. I'm like, I think before you get to that point, you just have to get real used to being very uncomfortable for long periods of time.
I don't know how
that's how you practice.
So you must be good at like traveling long distances then, because you can just like.
I do. Yeah, I do fit into. I feel like I've gotten some jobs just by being able to be in smaller spaces.
They can cram you down there.
Yeah, like you see on Pigeon because we're on location.
Oh my God, on Pigeon.
So on this Mobile, the Pigeon Explains. A lot of it is opposite children, and like when we're opposite grown-ups on Sesame Street, like celebrities, like we're all like Stephanie D'Abruzzo, who's like legendary puppeteer on Sesame Street. She was like original Avenue Q. Kate Monster. She said, if I ever write my autobiography, it'll be called At the Crotch of Greatness. because you're just constantly at crotch butt level to all these famous people because But with the children, they're like half that size.
Right.
And, you know, we're not in a studio because like usually we can like build like a platform set or like put them on a couple Apple boxes. But we were like on location in a kitchen, like outside in a yard. And so I've never worked so low. Like usually if you're just right. So Bradley Freeman is an incredible puppeteer. He's like doing the voice and the puppet of the pigeon. I'm just doing the wings. And usually when you're just doing like assisting, you can kind of like figure out how to just get out of the way and be comfortable because you don't have to have that range of movement. And
Right.
but I'm like, I'm still in the shot. I'm still in the shot. I'm still in the shot. And I'm like on the ground.
Yeah.
So you
Straight up, and I'm like, Kathy, sorry, do you mind?
Still
Can
see
you
it.
just? I still see.
yeah. And so like what you call it? Well, why were we talking about but we're on location. We're like between a bed and a wall. We're like between a wall and a kitchen sink. We're between a kitchen island and like, you know, a refrigerator. And I'm like, we need Bradley and his whole body to be in there. And I need to somehow go in and like fit between like these like children and like the puppeteer and like the furniture pieces that we cannot move for some reason. Right. And then, and so being able to scrunch down is definitely an asset, unfortunately. Like yeah. There have been some jobs where I've just been smaller.
Limber to do this job, like
limber more than strength. I feel.
Yeah.
You got a call for this job like last minute, right? Like that's so it was like very quickly put together. Like, what are the kinds of like quick things do you have to do to puppets to make them work?
Well, you know, it was like 1 p.m. on a Saturday. Mark Petrosino, who's of Monkey Boys Productions, they make all the puppets for for SNL, and 1 p.m. Saturday, what are you doing? Can you come to Saturday Night Live tonight, like right now? They built a puppet that's to be puppeteered from under a coffee table. I can't lie down flat without my chest bumping against it. They asked me if I know any smaller puppeteers. Again, like Tony, it's because you can scrunch into a small space. You got the job, kid. And I remember like hanging up the phone because I can't do it because it was my daughter's birthday party the next day and I needed to make cupcakes. So I hung up the phone. My husband's like, who is that? I'm like, oh, it was Mark. He wanted to see if I could do Saturday Night Live. And he's like, oh, you sure you don't want to go? It's like a good ticket. It's like Phoebe Waller-Bridges and Taylor Swift. You don't want to go? I'm like, no, not go. Puppeteer. He's like, you pick up the phone and you fucking tell him you're going to do it tonight. And so they had written like a gag of like Mike Pence was calling a cabinet meeting, and like Stephen Miller, who was the immigration guy, who was like truly evil. Basically,
Jessica
like they
loves him. We can tell.
Fucking warm. I hate that man.
They put like a snake charming basket on the table, and they open it up, and a snake's supposed to come out, and they go, Stephen Miller, you're able to make it. And so they wrote that joke that day, and there's no snake puppet. And so my friend James Whitehall, who is an incredibly talented and the fastest puppet builder in the world, he's like, I don't have a snake puppet. So he brought like a rubber snake, a stuffy of like a python from like the Bronx Zoo gift shop. And then you know those like sticks where like there's like a trigger and like it's like an animal head and it goes like
a
this.
dinosaur face.
Exactly. That of a snake. And so it was decided that you would put like the plush body over the stick. And then he had to paint the whole thing. And the paint is still drying. And and I'm in the cold open. And I just have to hide under this table the whole time. And I'm like, so before they built this snake puppet, they put me under the table to make sure I fit. And I'm thinking it's going to be one of these puppets. And so I lay down on my side and they're like, we're going to cut a hole in it. And once we cut this hole, that's where it is. I'm like, yeah, right here. That's where my shoulder would be. Great. And now it's not my shoulder. It's a stick that doesn't move. I can't control it. And it has to slither out somehow. And so this is like dress rehearsal. And I'm like trying to poke it out. And they're like, no, don't give away the gag. I'm like, I'm doing this for the first time in front of a live audience, taped. So that was very terrifying. And I just remember lying down. And it was my first time doing SNL. I'm like looking at like the lighting grid. I'm like, I'm in a historic place on the floor, surrounded by all these important people. And I'm just like, what is my life right now? And so then they had some time to rejudge it for the live taping. But again, I forgot what they changed to it. Maybe the basket. And I'm trying to poke it to see how I'm going to get this out straight without damaging the puppet because it's still wet. And they're like, no, don't give it away. I'm like,
I need to try.
okay. I remember back then it was like right here, like sitting, and I'm like, where that coffee table is. And he's like, are you going to be there the whole time? I'm like, yeah, I'm a big fan, Mr. Bennett. He goes, okay. And that was, was like and so then I bring him out, and during dress rehearsal, I hear, I'm like, wait, what? Nobody told me that like Mikey Day.
Got lines.
Yeah. He's speaking in parcel tongue. So he's just going, you know, which is hilarious. No one told me. I don't know what he's saying. So I'm like, oh shit. So I'm like taking the little like trigger, like trying to like, you know, open the mouth as best as I can. I could barely hear him. It was so chaotic. And then it's cold open and live from New York, it's Saturday Night Live. And then if you've ever been on that set, like 50 people descend onto the set and all take away one piece of the, you know, and then you're just there, and I'm like, when do I?
No one picked me up.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, were you just laying there on the ground? They picked everything up around.
Yeah, I crawled out, and I'm like, now? Can I go now? And like Mark Petrosino had to grab me by the hand, and it felt like a POV war film where, you know, it's like pieces of wall and like crew and you know that thing, like whenever like there'd be like these behind the scene like SNL or Conan O'Brien things, there would be like, you know, showgirls with feathers and like a guy in a dinosaur suit. Like that's what it feels like. It's just like, what is
just
happening?
You crawling across the floor.
Exactly. Like did everybody forget about me? Yeah, Mark just like, you know, like just running me past. Like, wait, no, stop. Okay, go. You know.
So in the time you got the call to the time that you brought the snake out of the basket.
Yeah, a puppet that did not exist pre.
9 hours?
And then I watched. No, because I had watched Taylor Swift do the dress rehearsal. And then I was like, oh, I guess I could just go home now. And so I got home in time for a weekend update. And my husband's like, I just saw you on TV. That's crazy. Cool. Yeah, it's a benefit of living in New York City when you want to be in performance because you're here for all those weird last minute things. Just a quick gig. Yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy. Yeah. That was fun.
Do you know the kind of thing, like, is there prep work? Like, do you get a scout day or anything? Like, do you know what the kind of thing you're going into? Or is it just kind of blind show up?
In an ideal situation, we have a puppet captain on most, like, shows that are, like, you know, where puppets are the main feature. We'll have a puppet captain. And so they'll be part of the production meetings and pre-plan everything. And, of course, just like anything else, like, there's going to be unexpected stuff on the day. That they will also be able to troubleshoot like as we get to it. But yeah, no, so we're not usually there. Yeah. But Bradley's been a part of the pigeon meetings as like the one and only puppeteer. And he'll sort of help as much as he can. But it helps to also have like a production like a producers who have worked with puppets before because it's so different from anything else.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. I like your SAG. Yeah. Like, but I'm assuming like a lot of people probably think of the puppet itself as set deck or props or, you know, it's like what kind of category do you really fit into?
I'm SAG. I'm a performer. We all do voices and we all voice our own puppets for the most part. You know, there's obviously exceptions like crank yankers. They're obviously lip syncing over pre-recorded calls. But I've not experienced it myself, but there's definitely been puppeteers who've been categorized as like stunt or props on other movie sets, which is not accurate.
Stunt
because we're performing. People kind of like forget, and maybe it's because we do such a good job making it feel like a actual sense and creature. Like you forget that there's just like a human manipulating and performing that, and making it. Believable.
I mean, you do forget like when the camera's cut and you stay in character, that's my favorite thing. Oh,
that's magic. Yeah, watching all those like outtakes from like, you know, Muppets Tonight.
The grip's like adjusting it. You're like, don't make it fall on my head. Or
yeah. I mean, they are an extension of us for sure. It's magical. Yeah. We don't
Is it just easier to stay in that headspace between takes kind of thing?
It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's more for fun and to kind of keep that energy or you know, stay in the character. But it's also not like we only talk through the character and they live in our head. It's you know, it's
well, I guess to that same point, do you get to meet, like if you have a celebrity on Sesame Street or something, do you get to meet them beforehand, or is it just they only meet the Muppet?
No. We'll meet them. I mean, the thing is, like, my character's not like famous enough that like, you know, they're like, okay, nice to meet you, but when am I gonna actually meet Elmo, you know? And so, but it is nice because it's such a weird thing, and because we are like, again, at crotch level to introduce yourself and like show that like I am a nice, normal person. Hi,
We're in the same union.
and it's
I'll
like
be down here.
it's just nice to be like, hi. So my name's Kathleen. I perform Chi-Young. So nice to meet you. So I'll be down here, and yeah, and especially for the kids too. Like it depends, but to just kind of prep them and be like.
There's got to be
I'm gonna
kids
be down here.
that completely ignore you and just think
Grown-ups completely ignore us. Grown-ups completely ignore us. Like, and like it even is still magic. Like there are people on the crew who, I mean, like it's magical. And we, on Sesame, we have some of the best performers, not even just puppeteers, like performers in the world, character performers. And it's just magical what they do. Snuffleupagus? You've never seen Snuffleupagus? I've never seen, no. Because Jessica mostly works in like our smaller remote studio on the Kaufman. When Snuffleupagus comes out.
That's got to be like 3 or 4 people, right?
It's 2 people.
Okay.
Marty Robinson, who also plays Telly and Slimy. And he's been
I know
doing
all these puppets.
You don't know Slimy?
No.
Telly Monster?
No.
You're kidding me. That hurts my feelings.
I did not watch Sesame Street to an adult age.
I see.
Yeah.
No, but Slimy and Telly Monster, they're old guard Muppets. Anyway, so Snuffy, he's like a big woolly mammoth looking thing. Marty has been playing he's like it's crazy because he explained it to us and he showed us the inner workings, and it's like, those like organs where it's like, like a one-man band where like, phew, crank, crank, and you're playing the organ at the same time. Like that's what he's doing in there. It's crazy. His feet are in Snuffy's front feet, and then there's like a PVC pipe for his like trunk, so he could do that. But then he comes out, and then he has to put his hand in his lower lip to flap it, be like, "Oh, hi, bird." And then there's like controls for like his eyes to go left and right, and for his eyelashes, or his eyelids. And then there's a man who they bring in, Bryant Young, and he's been Snuffy's backside for decades. He's not a puppeteer; he was a trained dancer. And now I think he's like a buyer for fancy like hotel furniture, but like they just fly him in like the 1 or 2 times a year to be Snuffy's butt. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's like
great resume.
That's my new dream job.
No, it's not because Marty, like sometimes if they need to put somebody in really quick for like a photo op, like he'll put a new guy in
and it's just
he'll
back
mess
2
with
feet.
them.
It's just the back 2 feet.
It's the back 2 feet, but you also have to sort of round your back so that you round out his backside, and you can't be up or else you'll see your head sticking up. So you kind of have to do this. And also it's Snuffy, so you have to be at a wide stance. So
You've done this before, haven't
No,
you?
I haven't. I've heard so many horror stories of like what he'll do because Marty's like a stinker. He's like,
he would mess on.
He's such a funny guy. And so he's like, he'll be like, "You ready?" I think so. And then he'll just take
Just
off.
run.
And you're like, I'm in like a 6-figure costume and I'm going to fall and trip over a wire and like bring this whole thing down. And you're just like, oh God, oh God, oh God. Like that's the story that I hear a lot.
Is there any like way to view out Snuffy's butt or like
I think
or
he
you're
mostly
just blind,
they
you're
have,
just like going
You're just following him.
just like Big Bird, you get, I mean, not for photos. I think you are just blind in the dark. But I think when they're shooting something, it's like Big Bird has a little chest monitor. Yeah.
Oh,
and so
okay.
that's how they're inside this costume, like looking at the camera image. So it's not even like
they have control of the tail or anything? Or?
no, it just kind of sweeps behind him. And but anyway, I know how it works. I've seen him zipped open and 2 people come out, and it's magic. Like it doesn't matter how long you've been working on Sesame Street. Like Snuffy comes out, all the phones come out because he genuinely feels like a real Snuffleupagus, and it's magical. Yeah. So anyway, going back to like kids forgetting that we're down there, grown-ups forget that we're down there. I've been on shoots where like the producer, the director will come up and be like to my puppet, like, so on this next shot, we need to, I'm like, I'm here. This is not alive. Like, what are you doing?
You're like, okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
I've done that. I'm guilty of that so much. Like, I've done it to Ryan where I'm like, hey, Ryan. But then I start talking to Elmo because he has his arm up and he's like looking at me.
He looks so alive.
So I'm like talking directly to Elmo. And I know Ryan's there. And then I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I've done it with Cookie.
I guess if you have a new crew member coming into a puppet job for the first time, what are like 3 things that you would love that person to know? Like don't touch the eyes.
I was
don't,
gonna say
no
she really loves it
photographs,
when
like-
you touch the puppet's eye. No, don't do it. Just touch the puppet in general.
They as did you ever see that Christopher Walken SNL sketch of like the googly eye gardener where he puts googly eyes on all of his plants because he doesn't trust them, and then he goes, remember what Churchill said, the eyes are like the window to your face. Anyways, but the eyes are the window to the face. And so they're very important and they're very delicate. And like, so when we take Elmo off and put him on like the wrangling station, like he has this like little eye cozy, like a little,
like goggles.
no, it's like a little soft little like eye cozy.
Oh, he's got a sleep mask.
Yeah.
Kind of. It just like goes on his eyes.
Yeah.
Is it because they're glass
like
or
a
something?
little-
Like you don't like.
No, they're just delicate and they can scratch, and like that is like such the main focus of the character's face. But no, the main thing that I tell people, and it's like so, well, the number one thing is that we need monitors. Like they're not going to assume and they'll bring one, and we're like, well, what are the rest of us going to do? We
There's
can't
5
see.
puppets.
Yeah,
They
and so,
like new people never understand how many monitors are needed. And also pterodactyls are not allowed. There has to be SDI running into
Just
every.
because of a delay, or
Yeah. And
And
pterodactyls,
also, they're kind of unreliable sometimes too. We'll
they
use
can
them in like
be-
the costumes, and
Yeah.
I there have been so many times where we've had to like stop production to
Because with Big Bird is the one who gets like a tiny monitor here with pterodactyl, and so often we just sit there and wait because the pterodactyl is just not working, and we need to there's just
because Big Bird's a concrete uniform that you
Apparently.
can't, you
It's just
can't
like-
shoot a wireless signal
it's
through.
just like it's just not
no, because like
talking
once
to
he's
it,
in there,
and-
he's in there. Like when you see full
yeah.
body Big Bird, it's the legs are his pants, and then he slips into this his feet or his shoes, and then they lower the Big Bird onto
like a crane.
him. Yeah, no, it's like one of our wranglers who's really it's a skill set because it's like threading a giant needle. Otherwise, like Matt's like looking for it, and it's like it's a very delicate. It's not delicate, but it's like it's a very expensive, beautiful puppet.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
He's gorgeous, but no, it's not like lowered on, but it's heavy, and so we can't have Matt in there any longer than he needs to be. I thought in my mind, it was just like a costume, and it's like he's got like
Suspenders,
and it just kind of sits there. The weight of like I don't know how many tens of thousands of feathers, and like the structure, which is as light as it possibly could be, but it's still heavy, is here. It's just here. He's supporting all of Big Bird on the top of his hand, and then with his thumb, it's like imagine just like. It's not this, it's a long beak. And so just think about like the weight of that. And anyway, there's a few people who've like done it. Jen does Granny Bird and Marty's like stepped in a couple times, but it's like everybody says like hands down it is the hardest puppet to do on Sesame Street. And Carol Spinney, who originated the role, did it into his 70s, and we're like roller skated in Big Bird. It like nobody else has done it since him because we're like.
I mean, I guess if you do it that long, you build up these weird muscles that no one else has.
Yeah, no, then it definitely he felt them like in his later years, but.
Avid rock climber.
What's that?
Avid.
Think about taking rock climbing just for that to build up these muscles. But yeah, no, like ideally we are hardwired. We do wireless monitors, and that also has its benefits because then we can move them whenever we want to. But
when?
what?
No, I'm like when?
When what?
No, when do you do wireless? No, I'm just kidding. Because at 3A,
Nowhere
there's,
that you've been.
Oh no,
spaghetti.
not at 3. Oh my god, it's like a labyrinth of.
And
of
shout
wires.
out to Cindy who organized those cables.
Oh, because
in
that's
such
all
a
done. We don't see her
magical
do
way.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's all
it
done
used to
by
be.
the time we get there.
It used to be when I first started at 3A. It was a nightmare of cables and just running things randomly. Also, we have 2 cameras, and they would have to switch from A to B, right? But for some reason, there were never cables ready to switch quickly. So every time they needed to switch, I don't know why, we had to run and look for an SDI cable. And I mean, not me, because I was just, B-cam. I'm just like pushing the red button. But someone was like scrambling, and then Cindy came around and she just created this just magical organization of like
After 50
snakes.
years, somebody
Yeah,
came up
because it's
with
like you have to have like power running to the monitors, but also A and B ready, and you can actually just switch at the touch of a button on them. But they just never had both feeds ready to go, right? And so Cindy came in and just like did all of this, and she color coded everything. And so now it's just so...
She probably gets a nice kit rental out of it. That's
She doesn't. No, because all the monitors are there.
okay.
She does have like a couple that she sometimes
I didn't
brings.
realize that was all Cindy.
That
I
was
mean, it's because that
fully
like
Cindy.
having two cameras in the smaller studio 3A, it's like they haven't done that forever. And like when we shoot like the main show at Kaufman, we still do live cutting. Like it's like a 3-camera, like a sitcom live cutting thing. It's very unique. And we're divas. We have to see ourselves. So we can't just say like, well, we've got like A, on wide and the B is on your close up. I need to see both. Like, because it's the thing with puppets, it's like a matter of just like millimeters of it looking believably like it's looking at you and that it's not looking at you. It's a magic trick. Like, it only works from certain angles. And so if I'm looking at you talking on all of these cameras, it's going to look like I'm looking at you because I'm a human, But with the puppets, because they're just like immovable faces, it's all a matter of angles. And so that camera is not going to look like I'm looking at Jessica, where that one might. And so we seem like divas when we're like, I need to see both, but like we need to see both. And so in Kaufman, it's not an issue because it's live camera cutting, which is its own thing. Because then it's like we get into the situation of, we realize that as they're cutting based on the script, we're like, oh crap, but I'm not going to be where I need to be in time, or I'm not looking where I need to. And so we'll take like a hiccup, which is like, we'll cut, but we all know that we're pausing to have like Elmo readjust and then like, that he's like looking at his camera. But yeah, in 3A it was like a different thing because now we're doing, you guys are too good at your job that like, we want to do more and more bigger scripts like in that smaller studio. And there's more puppeteers and more monitors and more angles, and we have to be able to see them like right away. And so it's one of those things where you just make it work because that's what they're asking you to do, and they're incredible at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also Cindy came in when it started getting more complicated. Because Jeff had been shooting there. Jeff is the DP shooting at 3A. He had been there shooting for like the longest time, but it was always like very simple, usually one camera, maybe there was a second one, but it was like not that big. And then all of a sudden we were shooting specials and we were shooting things for the main, for the show. And it kept getting more and more complicated, and there were more monitors and more cables, and there was always a second camera. And Cindy,
yeah, we were shooting like whole street stories, like as if they were happening on the Kaufman set. With the green screen or the blue screen. And that's, when we met was like the Chiyoung's sort of debut episode, See Us Coming Together. And that was just like a logic puzzle of trying to figure out, okay, if we're looking here and we want to go to the steps, okay, so we're going to exit, but not this way. Like if you can come out this way, because we weren't actually in the space.
Is there a reason that they're not in the space?
Money.
Like, yeah.
Money.
But it's like, if it's always set up like that stage on Kaufman is permanently Sesame Street, right?
Permanently
Like it's
Sesame
not...
Street. Yeah, that studio and
it's
have
been
that
Sesame
space.
Street since...
No, they
second
shot
spot, right? Yeah.
third, I want to say. They shot in, I forgot what the studio is in Manhattan. They're Henson, like, historians were probably like, but it's I don't know. Somewhere in Manhattan, and then downstairs in Kaufman, and then, oh my gosh, Muppet fans are
Yeah. They're just going wild now.
hardcore. Don't hate me, please. And then they were downstairs at Kaufman, and then now upstairs on the third floor. Yeah. But it's like, it's always there. And it's pretty cool. But like some of the set pieces are original. Like the brownstone is mostly original, except for the steps, which I don't know how many years ago they finally made so that they can remove the steps so like puppeteers can
You can actually get in there.
and they can hide you in there so they could sit on the steps. But like I remember one time our props like yelled at me because I was like new and I was like sitting like this on one of the Hooper store like the stools.
Yeah.
And that's like the original leather on the seat, and they only have so much of it left. It he's like, dude, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. So yeah, it's pretty great. Pretty great.
I was shocked because I did Sesame one time, and then I came back like 2 months later, and they were all like, Jessica, welcome back. How are you? And I was like, why do you remember me? Like, you're all so great and important, and you have so much going on.
Memorable, and we remember,
shoes.
especially the
It's the purple
people
shoes.
that we like.
Yeah, especially when you're at crotch height, the shoes matter. You know?
Was it you or someone told me that I was like the first woman who was a camera op that they had worked
On
with
Sesame,
on
period.
Sesame.
I believe it. I've never seen anybody else. No one else.
I think someone told me that. They were like, yeah, that's like why we remembered you.
We have
And
a cast of firsts right now.
Oh, to be a woman of color
I know.
in the film industry.
First cam up of Latino?
Mexican? That's, yeah. First Mexican?
Ever.
Maybe not. Probably first Mexican woman camera operator for
guarantee
Sesame.
that's
If
absolutely
you
true.
keep adding
Comments.
adjectives,
The comments are gonna tell us. They're gonna,
no, actually, 1981.
but then you specify the hair color. So now you're the first Mexican
Who wears
woman
purple shoes quite often.
with colored hair who is a
I used to work on this. So before Puppets, when I was working in like reality, I worked on Bert the Conqueror, which is like this travel channel
yeah.
show. Yeah.
No one has the name Bert except for Bert and Ernie
Kreischer.
and Bert Kreischer.
So I worked on that show. We featured a roller coaster in every single city that we went to. And it was just like, we had to give everything a superlative. And it was just like the biggest double looping indoor coaster in central Canada.
Yeah.
We're here. And it's like everything had because like everything had to be, because, there's only one fastest, one highest, one, best like wooden coaster or whatever. It's like the first.
That's where the glamorization of all of the mundane began.
I'm sorry.
When people are like hyping up, like, oh yeah, I worked out. It's like you didn't do anything. That was completely normal. That's fine.
That was me. It was Bert the Conqueror's fault. I'm sorry, but. So what were you chatting about?
We were talking about 3A is separated from Kaufman, and I'm wondering because I know I've got like shooting at like Silver Cup, I've heard people complain like on the rigging crew, you only get to work in this stage between this hour and this hour because it's $10,000 to turn the lights on and the AC on for 12 hours and you only get the studio. So I'm wondering if that's why they don't shoot at Kaufman, because then they like if they have 3A at their offices, it's free.
I never heard that. Like I've never heard the specifics of it, but for sure.
I don't know how Kaufman works, but I know that like other studios, they do have a like for every bull switch you turn on for electricity, it's another $5,000.
I do know that they're like their own little world with their own, union system. But like 3A is the small studio that's at their headquarter office in Lincoln Center area. And it was just for, small shoots, maybe like a celebrity with Elmo, maybe like a workshop, and more they've just been building out more complicated episodes in this very tiny space. And it's really remarkable what you guys are able to pull off, like truly.
Great job.
Yeah, great job.
Hey,
Yes.
I'm just happy to be included. Jeff Turek is the one who's just
Yeah.
he's figuring it all out, and it's crazy because working with the Unreal Engine, it's just
it's pretty nuts.
it's nuts indeed. And we like have a bunch of people who are helping with all the things, but it's just
It must help out a lot though, since you're like in character looking at the monitor. If you see the background, now you can kind of like.
but they usually don't get the composite
Oh,
because
what?
there's a delay.
And so it's half and half. Like if we had the composite, it would be easier.
Well, I think that's because
That's the next step.
other Jeff.
We have the composite, but again, we're divas and we need to see what's happening in the moment. But like, so you'll see like if there's like a new setup or new monitor, we'll be like this.
Yeah,
Like to make sure
making sure that
we
it's
don't
It's
have
you.
a delay. Huh, me? Oh no, I'm like
No, so that you can tell that it's
that
like
that
No
it's
delay.
that like if it's like hear the clap, see the clap, it's like, oh no, there's a delay on this. We can't do this. Yeah.
And sometimes it's like 2 frames off or something, and they can tell right
But
away. They're like,
sometimes-
nope, I can't. Like,
Yeah.
see? And they'll be like, you see? And we're all just like, no, but I believe you. I believe you because that matters
so
to
much
you.
of it is also that like since we are live seeing ourselves and we know what to look out for, we're kind of self-directing ourselves sometimes, and like not everybody sees like bad puppetry or cares about it, but we do. And like so if somebody who isn't like in that puppet world is in charge of posts and they put in something terrible, that's us, that's our career. And so in a way, because like we know that not everybody knows what a good what good puppetry looks like, it's kind of on us to try as much. And that's why we're a little bit control freaks about our performance, because we don't it's out of our hands afterwards, which is everybody, but it's often in the hands of somebody who doesn't know what it's supposed to look like. And it's like, and then it airs and you're like, oh,
Is there any?
that's me. That looks like me.
Is there any puppeting that you've seen that's just like you're like I can never watch this show again?
Puppeteering
Yeah.
on TV?
Well, you're saying like it's easier. Like I'm sure like people who do lighting can pick out like why the fuck is that light there? People that do like that are always behind the camera, like why the hell did they move the camera that way? Like if you like,
everybody who is on TV in their own right brings their own talents and their own style, and they're all valid. I'm getting thumbs up. I'm getting thumbs up.
All right.
Yeah.
Good media training.
can you?
How many like puppeteers do you think there are that are in this world that you're in?
In TV film puppetry specifically, because like theater and like artistic puppetry is its own valid form. I'm like not in that world, but like TV film is very small. At least like working TV film puppeteers is very small. There's not a lot of production out there, and also you know, it's such a specific amalgam of like skill sets. And on top of that, that like thing that you have as like anybody who works in production where it's like, you're cool and I like working with you and we can communicate with one word. It's like you have to have that as well as a puppeteer. It's not just about like being the most beautiful or like the most, you know, I call puppetry a team sport. Like you can't, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. You have to be able to work with camera. You have to be able to work with your, you know, your performer, you're assisting. If you're sharing the frame and like this much space, like in 3A with like 4 other people, and we only have a few monitors for whatever reason. It's like we have to be able to share. Like, well, if you move it, can you still see it? Okay, I can still see it too. You know. And it's a matter of like, if you can adjust this way, and it's a matter of like a couple words, keeping the vibe up, you know what I mean? Like having that sort of like, there's like a personality to it too. You cannot be an asshole and be a TV film puppeteer. Like there are people who have revealed themselves as assholes and don't work anymore. And so anyway, and then on top of that, it's a weird specific niche skill set. You know, like my favorite, like he, like sort of thing is getting somebody who's never put a puppet on in front of a TV and look at themselves in the monitor, do so, and just be like, oh God, wait, what's happening? And we're like, yeah, it's not that easy, is it? So it's kind of like a specific skill set. And again, not that much work in it. And so like the cream rises to the top, I guess. And so even if I don't personally know every single puppeteer, I know of them. And I think that's how it goes within this. I don't know. I wonder what the number is to it, but it's not a lot.
It can be. But also, to add to what you were saying, truly the vibes at Sesame are so fucking wonderful. It's just everybody's so great.
Can you talk about how you got involved? You said you took like a Jim Henson program.
No, it was outside of Jim Henson. It was just some guy who, you know, it's David Vito of Brooklyn Public Conspiracy.
No, but then you said how you actually got involved with, like you said there was an open audition or
yeah, it was a Sesame workshop. I don't know how everybody knew about it. Like those guys from the class were the ones who told me about the audition. And yeah, it's like they say this is not an audition. This is just to kind of teach our style to new people. But it kind of is. It's kind of like
that's how they vet your attitude.
Yeah, because it's not just about, you cannot just send like a pristine, beautiful, you know, like technique on a videotape and maybe and they never want you to audition impersonating one of the existing characters. They don't want it. They want you to be able to come up with your own voices, your own characters. But you can't hire based on that. It has to be a vibe check. And I think like you have to, especially to be on Sesame Street, you have to be a good person, you know? And we have to be able to trust
except
you.
for Oscar the Grouch.
Oh man, Oscar is the best. And I will say this on 3A, I will say that like there is like, because when I came onto Sesame Street, I was very new. I didn't go to school for this. I didn't have years of like working to get to this place. I truly felt like I just busted into my childhood dream through the side door. And I'm like, how did I end up here? And like, everybody's going to realize I don't belong here. And oh God, and like I cut the line.
Big imposter syndrome.
Big imposter syndrome. And so there is like, compared to like other shows and productions I've worked on, there's like a weight to the legacy and there's like a pressure. And those top guys who have been there forever, like even, like some of the puppeteers who've been there for decades, they still feel that too, of like overanalyzing like what they just did and feeling like, oh, damn, like I could have done it differently. There's like a pressure to it. 3A feels different though. And part of it is you guys, and part of it is like having like a smaller studio, but it feels good.
Experience groundbreaking cinema on Mubi with the stunning 4K restoration of Tarsem Singh's The Fall. Filmed over 4 years in 28 breathtaking locations and starring Lee Pace, it's a monumental production that transcends genres. For a limited time, you can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/shittyrigs.
You tell me the story now.
Close your eyes.
When my character Chi-young debuted, it was like an API special. It was sort of in response to the rise in Asian hate. And the Asian American Foundation came to Sesame Workshop and said, like, could we do like an anti-Asian hate, like, how to talk to your kids about it? And so that's where the character was sort of born. It wouldn't have been a puppet character unless they had already had an Asian puppeteer, which they did. And so she ended up being Korean because I'm Korean. And so they felt like there was like an enormous pressure. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is the only Asian American Muppet at the time. And so I felt like there was going to be a lot of eyes and a lot of judgment on like whether or not I was doing a good job. I was terrified. And it was a street story, which meant it happened on Sesame Street, but we're shooting it on the elaborate labyrinth of like of green screens in 3A with Jessica. That's when we kind of first like really got to know each other. And like it felt safer because it was smaller and because like I could see everybody, know everybody's name. And it felt, you know what I mean? And like, do you remember?
You only have the weight of an entire like ethnicity on you, not also Sesame Street.
The eyes of like people
Separate
who've been
the two.
seeing decades of the like I told you guys, like the up until like right around COVID, like our camera A was the same guy since 1969 season 1.
That's wild.
Yeah. And so these guys have seen it all, done it all, like been around like Jim Henson, all those guys. And I'm like, who the hell am I, And so I felt this enormous pressure, but it felt like a safer place because of Matt Vogel, who was directing, and Alan Maroka, who was directing, but because of you guys. And like, it felt collaborative. Janet Kim was producing, who and she killed it. And like by the end of the week, do you remember? We were all like crying and hugging each other.
Oh my God.
I never experienced anything like that on Sesame since then either.
Really?
No, nothing ever like that. And I think it was because like we were just all on the same page about a very, it could have ended up being like, this kid made fun of me because of my eye shape. But like it ended up because our incredible writer, Liz Hara, who writes for Sesame, created the character Chi-young, also made it a celebration of API diversity. It's not like we're not all Chinese. We're all our own individuals who come from different countries and cultures, but we're all proud Asian Americans. It was a celebration as much as addressing the Asian hate. And so it was like this really nice message, and it felt so collaborative. And by the end of it, it was like all hugs and,
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was really like also... It was 2021, 22?
2021.
21.
September.
It was like September of 21. And there were like news of just Asian grandmas getting beat up on the street every other day. It was like bleak, right? And it was so wonderful to be able to go to work to do something that was so like carefully created to try and just do something about it, like culturally change something to stop that shit, right? It was just...
And it was like, it's such a simple message where like, how do we encapsulate like, the discrimination that happens across like all the different, but at the end of the day, and this is like anybody who doesn't, look like the mainstream white, cis straight American, is that all the racism that, against Asians could be boiled down to like, you don't belong here. You're an alien. Go back to where you come from. Your eyes are not like my eyes. Like, you're not normal. And like Chi-young was just saying like, it doesn't matter what we look like or where we come from or what language we speak at home, what food we eat. Like, this is what makes our neighborhood amazing. I belong here. We all belong here. And that's like a message that, oh no, don't cry. That's a message that it's like so universal, you know. We were all like crying. Like
I was crying.
There was you know, again, such a wait. API so TAF, they approached Sesame like in May. By June they decided it was a puppet. By September we had a physical puppet and a script. It was that fast. It was that fast. And we're like, what's happening? You know? And then like the news kind of blew up about it. But we wrote the script. Somebody tells Jiyoung, go back to where you come from. She meets all these Asian celebrities who help, you know, say like, well, you know, we had like Jim Lee, the DC Marvel comic guy. We had Padma Lakshmi, like all these people who like are from different cultures and fill out America in different ways. And it's like, yeah, no, I belong here. We all belong here. Yeah. So by the end of it, she stands up in front of the community. There's like a big party happening, and she says, "We all belong." And during I will tell you, I try to lock it down as much as I can. And I read it a few times, got a little misty-eyed. I'm like, okay, I got it. I'm good. We had a table read over Zoom, and I was bawling. And I'm usually good at locking it down, but I was like, couldn't get through the monologue. And I think it was because it was like, you know, the Zoom was like, it was a big production meeting.
It's like the first time you're actually reading it to other people.
But it was mostly white people. And it was like, I'm looking at a grid of faces and I'm like, you have to listen to me. You have to witness me right now. And me like, you know, like cementing my belonging. It was like, it was too much. Because like, again, it's like, and Sesame Street, the story that I always tell is that like, growing up, you don't see anybody who looks like you unless it's like a stereotype, right? And there was this one film strip, because Sesame Street used to be this magazine style. They would have the street stories, but then they would have like little cartoons and, snippets and music or like interstitials. And one of them was like a film strip of two little girls playing with a dollhouse. And it was like, okay, for the Muppet nerds, it was like 1, 2, 2 little dolls, 1, 2, 2 little chairs, 2 little dolls, 2 little chairs. And their little cats come and they ruin like the dollhouse setup. One of the girls was white. One of the girls was Asian. 5-year-old Kathy looked at that Asian girl and said, that white girl looks like she could be Asian. That's crazy. Because like I was so unused to seeing. Yeah. I was like, there's no way that she's actually Asian. Like I really thought that. And so, yeah. And like the more a kid doesn't see someone who looks like them on TV, which is like a window to the world outside, the more they're like, oh, there's no place for me. Mm-hmm. Where do I belong? I can't be anything that I want to be when I grow up because I don't see anybody who's doing that who looks like me. So it's so important that like Jessica is like here doing this as like, a Mexican like female cam DP. Like it's great. And so, I think it's amazing that Sesame has been like sort of opening up the diversity. We had like in the last few years, not just the first, but the first 3 Black female puppeteers in over 50 years, and like this sort of like, not just being like, hey, any diversity out there, but really outreaching to like different talent, different like directors, different like, crew. It only makes our industry better. It only makes the art better, That's
How does it feel to like work on a show that puts positivity out in the world instead of
it's the thing that is barely keeping my sanity together because like the news.
It is.
I'll just leave it there.
Sesame is keeping me like alive and because sometimes some of the jobs that, as you guys know, we have to do are just also, I also do G&E and there's like even less women there. And there was one job that I did last year where like the DP refused to look me in the eye when he called for anything. I don't know why. Like it wasn't like, and he was like a young dude. He was like a 27-year-old white dude, just, totally chill otherwise. He would like call for a light, but he would just like talk to the key
Put it
grip.
into the ether.
He would talk to the key grip to say what he wanted. And I was like right here. And he's talking to the key grip. And I would be like, yeah, okay, I will, blah, 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 blah. I'll do whatever. And he would just like look at me like that. And then like kind of like, I don't know. He couldn't have been afraid of me.
It was your shoes.
It was probably
maybe
the shoes. It was the hair. He was like,
he's just not used to it.
And he would just like go back to the key grip and like talk to him about it. And we were like selling something. It was like for a commercial of something, right?
Some bullshit.
Totally irrelevant. It was like a 3-day job. And it was just so frustrating. And so like we're trying to sell something and you're making me feel like I'm not human and I have to work super hard for you and you cannot look me in the eye. You have not used my name once. I would cry all the way like back home. Like I would be driving and just like sobbing, right? And then when I'm like driving back to that same job, I would be like, I'm just like, what am I doing? Like,
Yeah, you're like worried about going
awful.
in the next day. You have
I'm
to like tell yourself it's only a couple days.
I'm gonna be like,
You breaking that ceiling, girl. That's what you're doing. You're breaking that ceiling. Man, that sucks.
But it's like, it's awful, right? And, you know, obviously many other great jobs and other things and places, whatever. But then Sesame is like just wonderful. And then everybody's great. Everybody's super chill. The set looks like a subway car because everybody is different. And like just, you know what I mean? It's not just all of the same and everybody's the same skin tone. And it's like there's all sorts of people. There's a bunch of women. There's everything, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's just nice. And on top of that, we're doing this like incredible just
Smarter, stronger,
content.
kinder. To make kids smarter, stronger, kinder is
Yeah.
the mission statement. I mean, what's better than that?
and I'm learning because then they have Elmo like how to deal with frustration, and I'm fucking taking notes because I'm like,
You're like
so I
cancel
cry
therapy
less
for
on
the end of the week.
way
I'm all
back
set.
home. Yeah, no. There was one episode, I don't know if you remember, about grief. You were
No, that
probably
would have been
not
that
there.
would have been like a YouTube.
I think that was like Jen and
Oh, definitely Leslie. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like about, you know, a young puppet who lost her dad and she's like with her mom and they're talking about like having lost, you know, this woman has, well, the mom puppet lost her husband and the little girl puppet lost her dad. And they're just processing that, right? And my dad had just died like 2 years before, but it was like around his anniversary of passing. Anyway, and they were talking about it and I was like, I have to keep it together because there's no way, like it's really close to home. But, you know, I was like, I'm good. I gotta, you know, and they, at one point I'm just like shooting and I'm like just, and trying to not change my breathing because I'm like, I don't want the boom to pick up me being like,
Oh my gosh.
and I'm like just keeping it together and they're talking about how to deal with grief and whatever. And then I turn around and everybody's just sobbing because it's just like,
Yeah. It's a kid's show, but it's not just
No,
for kids.
It
and
happens a
we
lot.
are all in that moment processing our own grief with other things and we're all like just going through it. Like Jeff was crying. Everybody, we were all just like crying. And I was like, oh shit, it was not just me. I feel better now. But I am not unprofessional.
It's like they hit a lot of like tough topics like that. Like we have characters who, not as much like, you know, main characters on the show, but a lot of stuff that we do in 3A, you know, people with like military families, like Rosita's dad has PTSD from serving in the military. And then like grief, foster care, like discrimination, so many things. But sometimes it's also just like the magic that will just make you cry. Like it, and I don't think it's like weird, like that is unprofessional. It happens all the freaking time. There was one time where like, because we don't see Bert and Ernie as much on the show, it's become more like Elmo and stuff. And like, there was this episode where Ernie has to wash his sweater. No, Rudy. Rudy has to clean his blankie because it stinks. And he's like, doesn't want to let go of his blankie, which is like a thing that happens with little kids. And so Ernie's just like, oh, I've got like, I know how that feels. Cause like when I clean my favorite sweater, you know, but like sometimes I'll put a friend in there and then he's not as scared. Like I'll put my rubber ducky in, whatever. Anyway, it was so beautiful that like, I was like with Haley Jenkins and another puppeteer. And I'm like, is it just me? Like, I'm going to cry. And I look over at Haley. She's like, it happens all the
Crying
time.
over a blanket that's not even yours.
Not even a blanket. It was just the tenderness, like the actual tenderness of Peter Lintz's you know, because he's taken over. He was a Jim Henson character, Ernie, and he took over Ernie. I don't remember how many years ago, but it was so tender and genuine and like pulled back to like my own child nostalgia of like watching Bert and Ernie, and it was just too much because it's like it's not just about like the art form. There's a history that goes back to it, and it's like it's just pulling into your childhood nostalgia because it's a 50-plus-year-old show. Everybody has some sort of like connection to it. So yeah,
like it's just
so everything. It's nice, and like it's a world's not always the kindest place, and so to retreat back to a job, and it's your job.
We get paid.
We get paid for this, to put some positivity to reach out to kids and make them feel seen. It's like it's great. I feel very lucky.
Did you have any say in like the design process of your puppet? Like if you're the only one that's played her so far.
Yeah, no, she's very new and it's unusual. Usually like Sesame Street, they don't do anything willy-nilly. Great care goes into everything that they do. They've not made it to season 55 without, you know what I mean? Like gaining this trust that they're not, they're not going to break anytime soon. And so usually when there's like a new character, like say Rudy was actually created, he's Abby Cadabby's stepbrother. And so that was to introduce the idea of like blended families. Or Julia, who is our Muppet with autism, and I get to play her mom, Elena. All of these characters were very carefully researched, developed, workshopped, and consultants come in. And then you audition for it, and then you get it or you don't. Chiyoung was different because she only existed because we already had an Asian puppeteer, and there weren't any, staff like Korean people that would be in charge of creative. And so I was in a very unusual position to help sort of, be there through the design process and also just developing her as a character. And I feel really lucky for that. Yeah.
Because you probably get to put a ton of yourself into, I mean, you are playing the character.
Yeah. It's so funny because I look back at the See Us Coming Together special that Jessica and I worked on and I cringe at my own performance.
Really?
I do. I can't watch it because it's the first thing that I did with her. I'm like, I barely knew who she was, Like sometimes they'll be like, like from Nora from Queens, when I played like that big purple monster character, it was like the humor and the jokes and like who this guy was. It was like
Tony's
very
a menace.
strong. He's a maniac. And that was like so, I was like, I know exactly what to do with that. We can talk about that. But like Chiyoung was like, she was Korean, proud of being Korean. And, we kind of wrote in like, she's like a rock star. She like loves like electric guitar, being loud and like, skateboarding. Like she's like a cool tomboy kid. But I'm like, but all, it's like Sesame Street. So all of her lines are, everybody's nice to each other.
Were you like that as a kid though? Like, are you able to like tap into like your experience growing up as an Asian American and like put that into her?
Absolutely. Like little things like with Alan, with the human grown-ups, like I always put Mr. in front of, because like even as a Korean kid, like in Korean culture, we don't call grown-ups by their proper name. We would give them, it's always like, like aunt or uncle or ajashi, ajima, which is like ma'am or sir, or like, we don't, and if it's a teacher, we don't even say like, we always say Sunsae, we say teacher. And so to just talk to a grown-up by their first name, like when my white friends would do that, it'd be like, oh, hey, Bob. I'm like, no, that's Mr. Smith. That's weird that you're calling him Bob, So I always call Alan Mr. Alan and, Nina, Miss Nina, like little things like that. But honestly, like I just want to make her not just like Korean American, but her own Chiyoung self, because like I don't also want to be seen as like the Korean puppeteer. I'm Kathy. Like I'm hoping that I'm bringing something that's uniquely me as well. And so like with Chiyoung, like I was definitely a shy kid. And so I was not like her. I wasn't proud about being Korean. I was embarrassed about my food and like my mom's accent. And, this, I think it's like a pretty relatable experience to other kids of immigrants in America. And so it's been very healing, like learning how to be proud and out loud and how, she has to be confident and loud and kind of like, not very careful, but sort of brash. And I'm like, it's been very healing learning how to tap into my confidence and courage to give her that confidence and courage, because it's so important
that's cool
that she portrays that. Yeah.
That's
so
really cool.
It's like, oh no, yes.
Just cry. Sorry.
See,
No.
it's funny because like some people are like, I see you cry, I cry. I see you cry, I cry.
No.
But for me,
No,
when
but
I see
it's-
other people, like my brain goes, lock it down, be the strong one. And so like we shot BTS for Chiyoung, and like they hid. So Janet Kim, who produced. And so she's Korean. They brought her on to produce like not only Chiyoung but the special, and like she was incredible. She put a lot of her perspective and her childhood and her Koreanness into it, and I'm forever grateful for her. But she for the BTS, she's like orchestrated, and it wasn't even her job. She's like, I'm gonna orchestrate like this big like tearful moment because Kathy's gonna see Chiyoung for the first time and we're gonna capture it on camera. And so they're like, don't go into that room. And I'm like, all right. And so I go in and I'm like, oh, and I look back and Liz Hara, Alan Maroka, Janet Kim are all sobbing. And then my brain did the lock it down, and I'm like, this is great. I love this puppet. And they're like, wow, we wanted you to cry, not us. Like, we're not even on camera, you know?
But now
anyway.
you've seen, like I saw you posted something about like the first time you saw like a toy of her like in a store. Like now you like it's gotten bigger than you ever thought it was going to, right? Like it was
Truly,
it was supposed to just be a
I
special.
thought that she was going to be for this special, and she would like teach a lesson about, hey, I'm Asian, but I'm a person too. And like I was telling Bert,
Is that
like,
her voice?
No, but I thought like they're like, yeah, and she'll stick around too, and I'm like, okay, and I really thought she was going to be like, bye Elmo, and then like, bye Chiyoung. Oh, hi, welcome to Sesame Street. And that's all you would see. I really thought that she was going to be that kid. But she's become like a part of the cast of characters, which is incredible. And yeah, like she got her own stuffed toy last year. And it's Gund, like G-U-N-D. Like it's like a legit toy company. It's like a licensed thing. And they brought me one on set. And again,
I was there for
Jen
that.
Oh, were you? And Jen
Yeah.
Barnhart cried, so I didn't. Because Bryce taped it for me. And Jen is like... And I'm like, this is great. I can't cry when other people are crying. And so, but
Are
recently,
you like a big sister? Is that why? Like
Yes.
you have to be
I
the
am
strong
a big
one?
sister.
Yeah.
I'm a big sister. So, but yeah, recently I saw her because people would like from all over the country would send me pictures of like seeing her in a store. I'm like, oh wait, they're actually, this wasn't just like a, see, we're doing it. We're doing diversity. Like she's like in stores.
Yeah.
And so, but I recently saw it for the first time in person, and I'm like, that's cool. There's no words to describe it. And it was at Pearl River Mart in Chelsea
You go
Market.
in and you like sign some of the feet.
No, but you know what I did? It was like on the bottom shelf. So I merchandised it and like put it on the top. And I put it for any last Avatar Last Airbender fans. There was a Toph doll. And so I put them next to each other because I think they would be friends.
Nice.
Because Toph's cool too. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So I have like a bunch of them, and like I hoard them for like special
An
moments.
army of
Yeah, I hoard them for like special. Like I had a bag of them. I was like moving stuff from our storage, and we're at a Korean restaurant. And this like Korean mom was there with her baby, and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. So sorry. Could you like just watch my daughter for a second? And she was like a year
That's
and a half.
wild to begin with.
I think, well,
I don't know you.
she's like, you're Korean, right? And then she trusted me right away. And I'm like, because she's like from Korea. And I'm like,
Yeah.
in my bad Korean, I'm like, yeah, I'm Korean. She's like, can you I'm like, I was with my daughter as well. And we were like sitting down eating. And so I don't need another kid. What am I going to do? Steal her kid? I already got one.
I'm good.
I'm fine. Like, I will watch your kid. And so anyway, and then we started talking, and she's a singer, like a Korean, like whatever, folk singer. And so we were talking about me being a puppeteer, but she knew who I was. Usually it's like, oh, Sesame Street, I've heard of that. Oh, Chiyoung, oh yeah, I think I heard of like an Asian character. That's so good. That's amazing. But she's like, that's you. And she knew exactly who I was. And I happened to have a bag of the Chiyoungs. And I'm like, here. And she goes, oh, And
That's
so
cool.
she sent me a picture of her daughter like sleeping with that at night. So yeah, I hoard them, and I'm like, you may have one. Like, they're
earned
so
it.
special to me. Yeah. It's really surreal. I wish they had Tony. Well, actually, yeah, no, I wish they had Tony dolls, but they don't.
So yeah, let's jump into a show that's entirely different than Sesame
Very
Street.
different from Sesame
so
Street.
Tony is a full bodysuit,
Yes,
right? So,
yes.
So can we just first start off? Puppeteering is not just like you cover so many different things.
It's true.
And like what Can you tell me what constitutes a puppet?
I don't know. I wish I was smart enough to give you this like really astute, concise, academic, but it's so many things. It's just like animating something that wouldn't otherwise be believable as like a sentient living thing. Like Marty Robinson, who does Snuffy, who I can't believe you've never heard of Snuffy. That's crazy. Oh, wait, no, you had never heard of Telly and Slimy.
Yeah,
Like he'll be
Slimy.
like, this water bottle. Now it's alive, you know. I just puppeteered this water bottle, you know.
Right.
And so Tony was like, he had no moving mouth. He had no eye focus because his eyes were googly. It was just like a mascot costume. He was like the unholy like love child of Barney and Gritty.
Gritty. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's great.
But there was puppeteering to
Yeah.
it because like I didn't just stand there and like say the lines. Like I kind of like had to give him a little bit of like character in the way that he like, you know, moved and stuff, you know. And so like, yeah, it's puppeteer. That one happened so randomly. It was like during COVID, and Matt Vogel, who plays Big Bird, and he's our puppet captain and one of the executive producers of Sesame Street, he randomly texts me and says like, are you still able to work? And also, how tall are you? And I go, what? And he goes, how short can you be? I'm like, what? And so in this episode of Nora from Queens, Awkwafina's character, her imaginary childhood friend comes back to really fuck shit up. Like her dad is dating somebody. She doesn't know how to feel, and it like manifests in her childhood imaginary friend who sabotages stuff and tries to break them up. And so originally they wanted like some character actor like Wallace Shawn to come in and play this Drop Dead Fred type of character, but everybody passed on it. And so with 2 weeks until they were going to shoot, they decided it would be a full body costume. But Awkwafina is 5'2". You put somebody like Matt, who plays Big Bird, in a costume, and now your two-shot looks like this. And so they were like, so he's like, so how short can you be? I'm like, for Awkwafina, I will be in a squat. Like, I will be however short you need me to be. And so they like vetted me out to make sure I wasn't like a crazy like puppeteer. And then they put me on the production meeting and like,
There are a lot of those.
yeah.
No
And-
comment.
Next question.
And so like, and Nora Awkwafina was just like, wait, you're the puppeteer. I don't think she expected an Asian woman to be who they vetted. And she was so stoked. She was like, this is representation at another
That's
level.
awesome.
Yes. So then there's a guy who builds like mascot, like weird, crazy costumes. And he did it super fast. He's not a puppeteer. And so he built like the whole costume is like lined in like 2-inch like foam rubber. There was no joints. Super hot and not bendable. Like every time I walked and moved, it was like working against resistance bands, which kind of ended up like informing his character a little bit because he would just kind of hop around like this or whatever. And his legs were like, his knees were down here. So I couldn't even like bend my knee. It was, you find the limitations, and that's in any puppet, any quirks, like even if like maybe like the mouth is crooked and then you kind of like talk like this, you know, like you find those like characteristics from the physical puppet and you use it to inform. But anyway, wait, why were we? Oh, so then they were like, okay, so we got our puppeteer, but you know, they were gonna find some like celebrity male comedian to ADR it. And so they mic'd me for reference. But then I just kind of went for it. And like, I gotta say, like that Toeknee character was really my formative role for me, because it was the first time I had been on a set without a puppet captain. There was no puppet people there. There was no mouth or like eyes to worry about. It was the first time I was able to sort of like really live and breathe just a character from head to toe and feel just like, I'm just going to go for it. On Sesame Street, I'm constantly like, is that okay? Is that too much? I'm just going to, oh God, that looks terrible. I'm like, there's a million voices in my head going, oh God. Like they're going to realize how much I'm like terrible
But that's like the weight of the show.
That is the weight of the show. And also like me feeling like, you know, like my first day on Sesame Street, I was like 35 and pregnant with my daughter. I'm like, this is not my, you know what I mean? This was not my original trajectory. Like I'm not a performer, am I? You know? And Tony, I'm totally hidden, you know, and I don't have to worry about this. I'm just like, have to like live and breathe this character. And they're going to ADR my voice anyway. I'm just going to fucking go for it. And they ended up thinking it was really funny. And they kept it. And Awkwafina posted about me on her social media. Like the rap presents were like stickers of Tony, and they brought me back for like a cameo the next season. They like really loved him. And I'm like, they didn't do that as a diversity hire because, man, I do feel that sometimes. I'm like, I'm only here because they have enough white guys, and you know what I mean? I'm only here because I'm Asian and I'm a woman, and they need women of color. And I'm like,
I mean, if she's surprised by the fact that you're there too, like that's like an accomplishment within itself.
For sure. And but I'm like, they didn't need to keep my voice. You know what I mean? They didn't need to post about me. They didn't need to like bring me back. It's because they just liked what I did. Wait, do I have something to bring? And that was really, for a long time at Sesame, I'm like, I'm garbage. I'm just trying not to get fired. And like, that was the first time where I'm like, wait, if Awkwafina, and I made her break a couple times, like, cause we'd be like improving and I'm like, I made Awkwafina laugh. So anyway, it was like a formative thing. And then a few months later was Chiyoung, and like I kind of rode that. And then there was the pressure. But like I feel like now I'm starting to really understand who Chiyoung is. And she's just like, nah! Like she's just like loud, and she's just like, doesn't really care. Maybe she's a little careless sometimes, but she's confident. She knows who she is.
She's a little bit like Janet Kim.
She's a little bit like Janet. Yes, exactly. But yeah, no. So Tony was, and coincidentally, the first day of like main principal shooting for Tony was the same morning that we found out about the Atlanta shootings. And so, and so we were all like, and I'm on like a set with like a lot of Asian women, like groundbreaking people. Teresa Tsao is like the showrunner, head writer, and she's like, she just wrote Joyride. And so she is not your typical like, shrinking, violet like Asian woman. And it was like, and I remember like reading the news and like crying about it in my trailer. And then getting to work and being like, oh yeah, you think this is what a fucking Asian woman's supposed? I'll fucking show you what an Asian man, And then like I just brought that like fuck you, sorry, but like into that like sort of maniac character, and I don't know. It was like I was grateful to be there that day because it was really healing just for me personally to be with all these other like badasses. And just, like the whole point of that guy shooting up that spa was like, he just couldn't help but see Asian women as like just a sexual object that were just born to tempt him from whatever. And it's just like, fuck you, So I for many reasons, like I have like such a tenderness to like towards like Tony. Yeah. He like, he's one of the few characters where I feel like he feels so real to me that I miss him and I miss playing him, even though he was only in like 1.5 episodes. Right. So yeah. But so thus ends the tale of Tony from Nora from Queens. Thank you.
Puppets break, right? Yeah. Like I know a lot of stunt people, like when they do the stunts, they are also like stunt riggers. So like even if you're not doing the actual thing, are puppeteers, are they all builders? Do they know how to fix these things? Like
there's like a Venn diagram of like puppeteers, builders, and wranglers, and some people are all three, but not necessary, or two. No, that's not true. All it's like squares and rectangles. All wranglers are builders. Not all builders are wranglers. Some builders are puppeteers, but not all puppeteers are builders. I don't build. I've tried. I have 3 half-sewn pieces of fur somewhere that were supposed to be puppets, as like tutored by like very patient friends who know how to build and wanted to teach me. And I went, I can't do this.
Just like the Yip Yip monsters.
Huh?
Like
you know what the Yip Yip monsters are?
Yip, yip,
like
yip,
you know what they're made out of? It was like
no.
You know that chenille sort of like a material that they're made out of is like kind of that shimmery, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's not polyester. Maybe it is. It's like that kind of shiny, furry, synthetic material. It was a hat. That's it.
Like a beanie?
Yeah. It's like a floppy hat. And then it's like 2 sticks. And they put tendrils. And you just go, and it's 2 sticks when they're controlling. They just go, yep.
When we had I don't know if you ever saw the episode, we had a debate of what do you call an onky bonk? Or like a beadboard holders. One of the questions that somebody, or one of the things, some people, I think it was Australia specifically, call them yip yips because like the clamp looks like those monsters.
What's an onky bonk?
I also had never heard onky bonk.
Yeah.
What? I heard all of the other ones.
I love onky bonk. It's like this clamp that's just 2 pieces of metal that like holds a piece of beadboard. So like if you have like this styrofoam reflector, essentially, this is. So onky bonk, billy grip, beadboard holder, duckbill, quacker, flapper, yip yip, lips. This has more names than anything else.
What do you call it?
A billy grip is like a New York thing.
Billy Grip.
Oh,
Duckbill.
Duckbill.
like just a quacker or a duckbill,
Quacker,
or quacker.
Yeah, I guess everybody just calls what they look like. Like we have different like heights of cushions to put on our rollies in case we need to get taller or shorter. And it's a pancake. It's a double stuffed Oreo. It's a I don't remember
we
what the
have
other ones are.
pancakes too.
Double stuffed Oreo.
Well, we don't say Oreo. We just say a double stuffed. What were we just talking about?
Building and
builders,
like
yes.
fixing.
Yeah, no. So we have like a very specific job on set called puppet wrangling, and it's like basically wardrobe, but for the puppets.
Yeah.
And so they maintain, they dress, they rig props. Sometimes they have to make props on the fly. They make sure they have a monitor as well in an ideal world, and so they're able to just like HMU like see wait hold there's like a thing on Elmo's eye or like a flyaway. Yeah, I have
Do
two
you guys
characters.
have? Do you
the
wear
hair and
headsets?
Ji-young.
Like, can you talk to each other with heads, or is it all just kind of shouted out to the open?
It's shouted out because we're all mic'd.
Yeah.
And so if they have a feed, then they'll hear us. But no, we'll only do IFBs if like we have a song, like we're sometimes like.
Oh, for like playback.
But then there has to be some kind of live audio at the end or whatever. So for some reason we have to keep it silent, and so that's the only times I've used like an IFB like on set. But we shout or they hear us because we're mic'd over here on our hats or our headbands. Yeah. Yep.
You wear like the Britney Spears microphones, like the,
No, because we have to be in such weird positions
Yeah.
that we can't have the microphone anywhere that's going to knock against something. So when you see like, all those like BTS pictures of
Yeah.
Jim Henson, he's got like the headbands and
Okay,
or
so
sometimes
even the sound department has to be specialized for puppet.
it's true. Yeah. And it's funny because
Steven.
that's another thing where I'm like, when I'm on another set, I'm like, oh, they don't know this. They're like, so where can I put this? I'm like, oh yeah. I
And you're like,
forget
you
that-
didn't bring the
I know.
headbands?
I'm just like, oh yeah. It's like, not everybody is in our world. And so like I teach them how to loop it through my hat and then, have like a little safety pin in the back. And they're like, oh, that makes so much sense. I'm like, yeah.
No one's ever tried to
developed
like
this
mic
over
the
half
puppet,
century.
right?
No one's surprisingly that it's not happened yet. But wranglers are like, they're so specialized and so important and I think underappreciated because they very much have to have that like on set, that whatever that sauce is that makes, people want to like hire you, of just knowing how to be on set, knowing when to wait for the end of a take and when to stop a take, it's like just even that is like an art in and of itself. But the fact that they're artisans and they can build and repair and they're troubleshooters or problem solvers, like they're absolutely magical and they do it like very quietly.
I mean,
so I don't think
you
they
talked
get their
about
due.
even just like bending the rods in certain ways. Like
Yeah,
sometimes you don't even
that's-
do that.
No, like we try not to. I mean, like some of us like on set are puppet builders, and so they feel more comfortable doing it. But like honestly, if like you got a puppet on your hand, you might just like call over a Rose or a Lars and be like, "Hey, can you just And so maybe bending a rod is like the extent, or resticking something that's just like double stick to the hand is like the extent of like what I will do with the puppet. Like I don't want to mess or fixing Chiyoung's hair. But like, sometimes I'm like, I'm going to do this wrong. Lars, can you just bend
Chiyoung's
this
hair.
rod so that like the handle lay flat, it's very specific, specialized, and we couldn't do it without them for sure. And you feel it when you're on a set without a wrangler. Because you're like, oh no, what do I do now?
Is that like a pathway to get in? Like
No, and like I've someone asked me that once, like I'm thinking about going into puppetry. I'm like, well, good luck. But also they're like, I've heard about wrangling. Is that a good way to go in? I'm like, no, it's like the
more
most
advanced.
Yes, it's like of the builders, there's only certain ones who are asked really to wrangle on set because again, it's not just about building; it's about doing it fast and having the sensibility to be on set and also troubleshoot and have a rapport with everybody. And so you have to have years of building experience before you'd even be
Right.
considered for
Because
that.
if you're just in the, I'm going to call it a laboratory to build the puppets, like you would hope you have more time to like do things really. But if you're on set, it's probably got to be a little bit faster.
now, and you know how it is. It's like you have like your like your schedule, but things move all the time, and it's like, wait, I didn't think that this puppet had to be in this costume now, and now you're like doing
Right.
things on the fly, So things switch back and forth, and you have to just like run with it and do it as fast as you can. And nobody wants to be the person like being waited on.
Right.
And this stuff takes a lot longer than you would think. It's like you're sewing, you're building, you're like, rigging. So
So if
I wish I had a better memory, but I do remember like so many times when something was wrong, a costume that like a puppet was wearing was the wrong this or that, and they would be like, okay, we need to break, to fix it. And we would all be like camera people, and Gianni would be like, oh, that's going to be like 2 fucking hours, they got to redo this whole thing. And then Violet or Rose or Lars or someone will take 10 minutes, if that, like just to do this incredible change, like just to fix something that to me
it's
feels
like artistic problem solving. It's crazy.
Incredible. Like
one time we were doing a thing with like a garbage, and somebody just like said, like, wouldn't it be funny if the garbage talked back to the characters? And Michelle just like took some prop garbage and made a puppet.
I remember that. I remember
like
that.
10 minutes. We're like, this wasn't here like 10 minutes ago.
Michelle
It was
created
magical.
a puppet
Yeah.
on the like I remember that. That was
Yeah. And she's interesting because like there's like a lot of people who get into, all aspects of puppetry because they, because they're interested in all of it, including performance. Michelle is like one of the rare, she's like Rose, like she's just passionate about building and wrangling, and she's damn good at it. Yeah. And she's been doing it for a long time. So she's the one who wrangles like Big Bird and builds, and she's magical. Yeah.
She's incredible. I've like asked her for tips for Halloween costumes quite a few times, and she
her
has
daughter's
like this
costumes are epic.
incredible. Like I think Target or something like straight up stole one of her kids' costumes that she made one year. Like the next year, they had like she made like an octopus, incredible, just like beautiful costume. And the next year, Target had like that exact same thing. And she was like, "Do you think?" She was like, "Look." She showed me the pictures, and I was like, "Yeah, they stole your idea."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, that's funny." And I was like, "Sue them."
Speaking of we do have that one octopus talking about like specific roles. There's that octopus that's like this big. And sometimes your job will be just like a tentacle
yeah.
or 2 tentacles.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
You have
It's
4
so
people,
stupid fun.
all the
Huh?
tentacles are moving, or are you controlling more than 2?
Some of them.
You can do 2. It depends on how many people you can fit.
What's more fun, a tentacle or a butterfly?
Ooh. What's really fun about a tentacle is that like you have such a dumb job. And the thing is like it's all moving. And so
Yeah.
sometimes you can like mess around with it and just like
Just
start
hitting
poking.
each other?
Yeah, there's an episode where the octopus is cooking in Hooper's store. And he's using all of his tentacles to kind of like bake up all this stuff. And you just see Ji-young like poking one of the tentacles in the back and the tentacles poking her. And it's like you could do that when you just have like one separate person just doing that while the octopus is like focused on the actual meat of it. But we're just like kind of sitting there being like, So the tentacle is fun for that. Butterfly, it's magical, but it's also stressful because you're trying so hard. The thing is like you don't want to mess up the continuity because we're live cutting, and so like you're trying to like be mindful of where to land and when to land on a flower, and then like you could be slightly at a weird angle and then your whole body's in the shot. There was like an outtake where like Marty had to do again, Marty, and you have to imagine this guy's like this tall, lanky man with like, curly, like long silver salt and pepper hair. Like he looks like a puppeteer. And like
Go figure.
he was in the background just doing butterflies, and they just moved camera just slightly and they cut to me, and suddenly there's just like a man standing behind me. And Ji-young was like, stranger danger. So yeah, sometimes butterflies can be weirdly stressful because you're like, oh God, am I gonna get in there? I don't know when they're cutting,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So building is not a good entry level. Like what?
No, building is.
sorry.
Wrangling is
Wrangling
not.
is
If you
not.
build, and I am like envious of people who are really good at building, because I feel like it's like anybody who knows how to like build a rig that they're using, they know what it's going to do and what it's not going to do better than anybody else. And so like Ryan's great, like because Ryan Dillon, who plays Elmo, he builds his own characters. He has like a whole, show on Instagram,
show.
Dillon Gale Idiots, which I recommend anybody who's into puppets watching. But like sometimes I'm like, I don't know why this isn't working the way I want. And he'll like kind of grab, he's like, oh, let me see. Oh, the neck's too long. He's like, here, let me just, there. And I'm like, oh, thank you, you know?
Yeah.
So I am like, if you do want to get into puppetry, building is a great way because then you can also build your own characters and messing around that way. But wrangling is its own specific thing that you have to know how all the other pieces work before you can
Because you're messing with characters that aren't yours too. You're like,
yeah, sure. And it's a very small group of people who get asked to do it because it is so specialized and
So I guess you didn't do it this way, but if you are building your own characters, like did you do like voice coaching or anything like that to like come up with like the
No, it just kind of not really. Oh, and you know, before the Sesame stuff, like we did get like I had like practice puppets and stuff like that. So I mess around. We make like videos for YouTube that way. But I think it just happens. And I think that people who naturally tend towards puppetry just are those types of people who also do voices. I'm not sure why. It's like puppetry kind of feels like a twin sibling to animation. It's just like being able to manifest like life, you know, where it didn't exist before. It's like, again, it's like put a googly eye on a water bottle and make it sentient. And so part of that is all like world building to me, you know, and like maybe some people do it in other ways, but that sort of animation, like bringing this character to life, it's like, what does it sound like, you know? And so it kind of naturally, for me, happens that way. There are other people like, say, Eric Jacobson, who's a Muppet performer on Sesame Street, who also does Disney Muppets, and he took over all of Frank Oz's roles. So Fozzie Bear, Miss Piggy, you know, but he also does Grover and Bert on Sesame Street, you know, and a ton of other characters. I don't know like what came first, but like he can do literally any cartoon character voice in the world. Have you ever heard him do like Winnie the Pooh or like Mickey Mouse? It is identical. And like he is just as much a nerd for voice acting and can tell you exactly from what year to what year, you know, which actor took over Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse. Like he is a nerd for that as well. Like you listen to him talk to like some of the other guys, like they can really nerd out. I'm like, I didn't know this was like whole world. And they sit there like practicing, you know, like as a teen boy, like trying to figure out like how do you do the Donald Duck voice?
Well, that's
you know?
That's a big
like,
job.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you hear a recording of yourself, you like, I hear myself completely different in my head than when I watch these episodes. I want to kill myself. But so it's like, how do you even get to that point where you're mimicking? Because if you're making a voice, you're going to hear it differently when you're doing it than what it actually sounds like.
Yeah, it's a whole other art form and people work on it. It is a craft. It's not like, oh, you just, you know, like you kind of just happen to sound like Mickey Mouse. Like people really work on it as a craft. I'm not one of those people. And I don't think all puppeteers are necessarily the types who like sit there and like, oh, how would I do Cookie Monster if I'm going to do Cookie Monster? It's for me, especially, it's just more, you know, character acting than voice manipulation. I feel like it's two different things. Like some people are like truly able to transform their voice and make it sound like other people. And like when Matt took over Kermit the Frog, obviously, you know, was originated by Jim Henson and then was played by Steve Whitmire for many years. It was like a whole workshop with like a vocal coach to try and like see how he can get closer to Jim Henson's Kermit the Frog. But then it's like this other thing. It's not just the voice. It's not, because there have been people who like can mimic.
It's pauses and you know, there's
it's not just
so
the vocal
much to
quality,
it,
it's the character. And so it's something that we talk about a lot at Sesame because almost all of the characters that are, you know, like from the early years of Sesame are not played by the original performers. And so how do you recreate a character while not like keeping it in like a museum case? Like how do you bring it out and make it living and bring something to you in it? And the answer is like, you know, it's about imbuing these like dolls with life and a part of you. And so it's not just about the voice mimicry, which I feel in and of itself is like a skill, an art form. I'm okay. I can do funny voices, but not like some of these people can do it. Well, there's Tony, you know, and like, but I, you know, there's like little things that you can do. But honestly, my two characters, right? Like Elena, I had been asked to audition for other like mom characters on Sesame Street, and I always kind of gave it like a, you know, like a character voice or something like that. But Elena was the first one where I felt like I'm not going to get it, so I'm just throw away this like this audition, and I just like did like a nice version of myself, you know, like me on a nice day, and I got it because they just wanted a real mom. And then Jiyoung came, and you know, like I can't do it because I've been talking too much. But like I try to go as like high and kind of squeaky as I could. And they were like, can you pull it back and make it just sound like more like a young you? And I'm like, okay, well, it's just gonna sound like me then. And so there was actually a script where Elena and Chiang were talking to each other. And so we had to do an Eric Jacobson move because he plays all the characters. And so another puppeteer will have to come and double as him. And either Eric will throw those lines and that performer will live lip sync to his words, or they'll just do it and they'll ADR it afterwards. And so I'm like, if it's me talking to myself, it's just gonna sound like two Kathys. But it didn't, like, because even though, like, Elena just sounds like this, and, like, Chiang just sounds like this, which both kind of just sound like me, their characters felt different. And that, like, I was like, oh, okay. So, okay, we're okay, and there's more to it than just the voice manipulation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that brings
the personality,
that brings up a good point, because you just said we've been talking too much. Now, like, if you know that you have a recording session tomorrow, or you're like yesterday you were doing ADR or something like that, what kind of prep do you do for a shoot?
I hadn't. And then 2 days ago I was doing ADR, and like I can hear my tongue because it was so dry, because I had been drinking that night before. And so I asked my friend who's like a vocal coach, and then she gave me some tips. So from now on, I will be hydrating 2 days before.
Okay.
But on the day, she gave me some like tips, like saltwater gargling. This really fucked me up, this visualization. I'm like, saltwater gargling, because I think about it like when you're having like a sore throat, or you're like, but it's because when you put like salt on meat, and it draws out the moisture, that's what it does to your tongue and your throat.
I can see that. I mean,
Does that not gross anybody else out?
No.
we are just meat.
We're
as
just
well.
yeah. But it's more like, I don't know. No, there's no heavy prep work. I don't like, and I haven't gotten too much into like making VO stuff, like my bread and butter.
Do you do animation at all? Like, do you do
God,
VO
I would
for
love to get
animation?
into animation. I've done Jiyoung's been part of some animated shorts for Sesame's YouTube channel. I've done like a couple small things. I did my first video game, which comes out next month, which I'm very excited about. Do you remember Katamari Damacy?
Nope.
Where you just roll up a bunch of garbage?
Oh, yeah.
That guy and that mind made another video game. It's called To a T, but it's about a teenager who can't move their arms from this position to a T. And it's weird. Anyway, so I play the main teenager. Yeah, it gets really weird. And then like podcasts and audiobooks and things like that. But I would love to get into more animation. That would be amazing. And so if I had to talk that much in a character voice, I would probably maybe prep more. But my dad got to visit Sesame Street, and that was very fun, because I was like, I just had this image of like, I really just want a picture of my dad in Oscar's can. How am I going to make this happen? How much can, like, I really want it. I don't know if, okay. Anyway, we didn't have visitors for a long time because of COVID, but this year they just started opening it up, and like we're all just like allowed like a few, like 4 visitors. Has to be one day, like a predetermined hour, My parents have never been on set, so I brought my parents and my daughter and a friend. And I went, and so we were on a 5, and like the lights were still on, and I'm like, Dad, would you get into Oscar's? Yup. And then he does and so I posted it on my Instagram. It's like my dad in the Oscar can, and it's so cute. It was really funny. They like don't quite understand what I do. I still don't think they quite understand what I do. But like I remember when we were like shooting See Us Coming Together, and it was like Jiyoung is like the first Asian American character, and she's Korean, and she's gonna have her own special. Everybody in the green room, like Pam and Ryan, and all these like big famous puppeteers, like, oh my God, what do your parents have to say? They must be so proud. And I'm like, oh, I didn't tell them yet. And they're like, why? And they're like, I don't know, they don't care.
Is it just because like this wasn't a part of their life growing up, that they like don't really understand like the, I'm going to say, cultural significance of?
Yeah, it's like definitely the American cultural significance of it. But I thought they would understand, because I grew up watching it, and Sesame Street's been a part of their lives as long as I've been alive, But the puppets, and they don't, even when I worked on story producing, like they would watch an episode of Moonshiners on Discovery Channel just to see my name, but they don't understand.
They're like, "Well, so what did
nobody
you
knows
do?"
what
Yeah.
nobody, honestly, even people in production don't understand what a story producer does, like on a reality show.
Lettuce.
But,
To be fair, my mom didn't know. She was like, what do you do? What do you do? And then I worked on What Not to Wear. And then she was like, oh my God, you worked on the best
takes-
show on TV.
Yes.
And I was like, I worked on it for like fucking like 2 weeks. Like,
that's what it is. So nobody really understands what any of us really do. They're like, oh, you just point a camera at a thing. So my parents, they just couldn't care less. My brother like tried to like big up me on our family group chat. And they're like, okay. I'm like, so my character is going to be debuted on the Thanksgiving, parade float for Sesame Street. They're like, I'm like, so we might have to order Thanksgiving this year, have it catered, or maybe we do it on Friday. Like silence. And then my dad just answers, okay, we order turkey. I can show you the text. It's literally what it says. And then I went
I
to
like
him.
that you read his text and
Well, listen, if I'm telling a story and my dad is speaking in Korean, no accent. But it's like the text, I could hear it in his voice. When he speaks in English, I will do the way that he told me it. But like, there's just no response whatsoever. And the next time I saw them, my mom's like, so what's about the parade? Like, you're going to be on TV? I'm like, no, my character, my Sesame Street character is going to be on the parade. And so my dad points up and down his forearm, goes, so just this part on the TV. So
was he right?
Huh?
Was he right?
He wasn't wrong.
Yeah, it's just my forearm technically, but no, my arm is not on it. The puppet is, and so like it wasn't until and like any immigrant kid will understand this is when Korean news picked it up, and like she made like the news circuit, and their Korean friends whose kids like actually went to Ivy League schools and like got like actual real jobs that my mom wanted me to get. And saying like, whoa, we saw the news and Kathy and this is so important. That's when they realized like, oh, this is kind of cool. And so when they finally made it to set, they're like, oh, this is nice. But they didn't grow up watching it, My dad's reaction to seeing Chiyoung, they were genuinely excited. Like, oh, wow, look, there she is. And he pulls her off my arm and puts her like flat on his palm like this, like he's weighing a sub sandwich or like a fish. And he goes, oh, whoop that, which means like, wow, she's heavy. She's pretty heavy. I'm like, Dad, can you put that children on set? And he was like, oh, okay. And then he went on, I have a picture of my mom and my dad with Chiyoung, and I'm not in it. And he's holding her. And it's so funny because like you talk about like puppeteers like imbuing their character with like a piece of themselves. I don't know what it is about the way that his arm is in Chiyoung posing for this. She looks like a Korean ajashi. She's like... And I think it has something to do with the way he didn't know where to put his thumb. So like it looks like there's something in her chin, but like he's not holding her straight. So she's kind of like this. It's hilarious. But that was pretty hilarious. And like so my dad was in importing, exporting for most of our life. And then like there was an Asian market crash. And so they had to shift somehow. They're like, man, we got 2 kids about to go into college. And so they went to dry cleaning, which was rough. It was like they go from 5 days a week to 6-day, 12-hour days, like rich people in Manhattan, like just giving them shit because, they don't speak English great or like, because they can, because they see them less as human. And there was like this weird full circle moment where like I got a picture of them in front of the laundromat, like at Sesame Street. And I'm like, look, they have a laundromat too, That was really nice. But it was cool. They got to meet Big Bird, which like Big Bird's not in all the episodes now, and be in the can. Saw where Snuffy is stored.
Get in the can.
Yeah. No, so it was really cool.
That's really sweet.
Yeah. Nice. My daughter's favorite part though is the crafty table. She still talks about it.
oh,
Yeah, that's everyone's favorite.
It's everyone's favorite part.
She's like, wait, you could
When
just
it's
take
good.
whatever candy or chips you want? I'm like, yeah.
I mean, I feel like at that age, it's always good. Doesn't matter what
Yeah.
the crafty table
Totally.
looks
Oh
like.
yeah. Oh my God, just free candy? Oh my God. Yeah, she still talks about it.
That's why she wants to come back to work.
Yeah. She loves performing and being a goof and stuff, but she doesn't like people looking at her. I'm like, hey, puppetry.
Yeah.
So do you have any tips for people that like I mean, I guess if you're
Sorry.
mouthing something and you
Yeah.
don't know the words, you're supposed to say like watermelon.
Yeah, watermelon.
Like, is there a puppet equivalent of that? Like,
No,
No.
because it all looks the same.
Yeah.
You know.
Watermelon, watermelon, watermelon.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it would just be like when we're like lip syncing.
are there? I mean, but are there like, I guess like puppeteering basics of like
Well,
how, like when do you open your mouth? Like, how many syllables are in a word, or is it just kind of like
yeah.
you?
I mean, ideally you kind of instinctively know how to do it, but there's just like things that you might not think about, like when you're first starting puppetry, like when people, I don't know, like we'll do the alphabet when you're first starting out, and it's like LMNOP or W. You might not go W or LMNOP because like our mouths don't really look like that. It
Yeah.
makes a bunch of shapes, so you might like skip a flap to make it look more liquid. But like, or things like some people might go ha 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 when they're laughing, but it's more like
Right.
because that's how we laugh, you know.
Yeah.
And so there's little tricks like that, but yeah,
But
no,
ha 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 sounds sarcastic.
yeah, ha ha
Yeah.
ha, yeah, where it's like it's just one big like open
Right.
mouth, you know. But it's just practice. Lip sync is the easiest part, I think, because it's just this. Everything else is harder. Eye focus, the monitor stuff, character work, acting. So there's a lot of acting involved in it more than you think. So I don't know. For me, like the tip, because a lot of people, they're like, wow, Sesame Street, how did you end up there? How does one do that? How can I do that? I'm like, I barely know how I got here, you know, and you can't, with any sort of like production job, you can't be like, I'm, you know, I want to make film because I want to make the next Game of Thrones. It's like, good for you, but that's not a guarantee.
Right.
You got to do it because you love it, you know? And so.
Or because you hate yourself.
Or,
Yeah.
it's true. It's true. It's true. Because sometimes I'll be on these set, I'm like, why do these people do this to themselves? You
Yeah.
know? But I'm sure they look at me like, you know, lying on the ground.
Like contorted.
You know? Yeah. Yeah. Everybody does it because, like, I don't know, you're like, for some people, obviously, it's like you get into it and you're like, oh, well, this is now how I make a living. But like with, you know, I don't know, if you're in it to make art, like you're in it to make art. And so now there's nothing stopping you from looking up a YouTube video, unless you're lazy like me, on how to build a puppet, and then taking your phone, taking whatever camera and putting it on TikTok, putting it on YouTube, you know, finding message boards and seeing other people who are puppeteers or want to be puppeteers, practicing with them, making a group together. Like the goal is not to be on Sesame Street. The goal is not to be on the Muppets, because it's such a lucky few of us who get to do it. And, you know, there are some of us who did have that dream and just kept working, but it's so rare, you know, like you have to be a Peter Lintz, you have to be, you know, a Ryan Dillon to get there. Otherwise, it's like, if you love doing it, if it's fun, if like the idea of world building and making like a little character come to life is appealing to you, then just do it. If you want other people to see it, put it out there,
Right.
you know, that's my advice, because like you can't do it because you want to be on Sesame Street necessarily. You do it because like, it's fun, and it's fun to do it with other people. Don't do it for the money, because there's not a lot of money in it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a perfect note to wrap this up on. I mean,
Listen, it's just like, of course, follow your dreams. Like, you know, absolutely. If the last few years hasn't taught us anything, is that there is no guarantee in media, no matter, you know, what you do. So follow the thing that makes you happy, because life is short, you know? I don't know.
this is beautiful.
Hell
Beautiful
yeah.
way to end it. Yeah. Well,
I don't
thank
know.
you for
Whatever.
being here. Thank you for telling us all about puppetry. I hope you
Thanks for having me. I feel like you guys, I don't know how I got here, because like, you know,
She's
so
doing
many.
it again.
But you know, people have been doing it longer. Who could probably speak to it more articulately than I can. And it's nice.
Remember, our brand is called Shitty Rigs.
Oh, am I a shitty rig?
Does that make
Am
you
I,
feel
am I,
better?
am I on
We
the land
are
of
all
broken
shitty rigs.
toys?
Yay.
All right.
But thanks for
Yes.
having me. This was really fun.
Thank you, Kathy. This was amazing. We will link to her social accounts. Be sure to tune in for future episodes. Thanks, guys.
See ya.